Good morning. Good morning. I'm Coleen Stubbs, founder of Simplified CEO Systems. Welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. It is the strategic warm-up that makes sure the rest of your week hits just right. I am the founder of Simplified CEO Systems, and I help midlife entrepreneurs to build both a business and a lifestyle that they're madly passionate about. I do this by helping them to simplify, automate, and delegate inside their business using Go High Level as a tool. If you are a Go High Level user and you are even a little bit overwhelmed by it, today's a great day to be on here because you can join us for our 14-day Simplified Go High Level Challenge, which starts today. Our guest today is Cathy Derksen, and we are diving into how to maximize your impact as a best-selling author. Cathy's going to share how to clarify the one message that your book should focus on and how to decide whether a solo book or a multi-author book is right fit for your time, your energy, content, and your money. You're going to walk away with a real strategy, real perspective, and probably a few uncomfortable truths because growth never happens in your comfort zone. Cathy, welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. Will you please give us a little insight into who you are as a person, not so much as an entrepreneur, but you have a few minutes here to make yourself relatable to us on the human level.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me here. And yes, I would say that my human level journey has been one of twisted stories. And I've been saying lately that if you'd asked me 5 years ago, if I saw myself being in the publishing industry and really focusing on this and even really being an author, 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you because it was not on my bucket list. It was not anything to do with my previous lives. My previous careers were in medical genetics and financial planning. And so stepping into the publishing world is a whole new thing.
Very good, very good. And so let's just get into it.
I know in the room right now, we have several people who are involved in the publishing industry on many different levels. So for many of you, this will be very simplified, but really a big focus of my work is speaking to people who are not yet published. And especially for those who really, where they are stuck in that feeling, well, I'm not an author, I'm not important enough, my story's not big enough. So really, those are the people that I tend to focus on, the ones that really should be stepping into this world, but are feeling like it's not them. And so just for a quick overview, the main thing that I do is focused on creating multi-author books. Midlife people are my main focus. This is a collection of some of my books so far. And so really the idea is to really, like I said, give people an opportunity to step into the publishing industry. To me, doing a multi-author book is the best way to really just get your toe in the water, get a feel for it. And to date, I have been published in 25 anthologies. Many of those are other people's books that I'm just one of the authors in. And of the collection that I have brought together and put out in the world, I've just published my 11th book. So got to update this picture. And so really this is where my heart is and where the big spotlight, the focus of my work is. And so as Coleen mentioned, today we're going to kind of do a quick overview of the value of being a published author, looking at solo versus the multi-author book opportunities, and then the opportunities that are created by your book and how you can personalize your visibility with a book. And so people often underestimate the value of being a published author. And I would say in this day and age, as an entrepreneur, and especially if speaking is something that you are putting on your list of things that you do in your business, I would say that being a published author is required. That if you're not a published author, if you don't have that word author in your profile, that it's almost to the point that people wonder why. Why aren't you published yet? Like, don't you have enough to say? Like, aren't you important enough? And so really, even just having that word author in your profile takes you into opportunities and communities that you otherwise would not have been invited to or had the opportunity to participate in. And especially, again, kind of looking at the multi-author book opportunity, one of the things I love about it, really, with my books, we have roughly 20 people per book. They could be anywhere around the world. So now you think about it, you're working in this group where you've got 20 people most of the time they're brand new. They're people you haven't met yet. So they're people and communities that you otherwise never would have had contact with. Now you and your work and your message are not only being broadcast out by yourself, but now all of these 20 people now have been introduced to you. They're now introducing you into their communities, again, potentially all over the world. So that is one of the big ways of really promoting yourself and expanding your network in a multi-author book. But even just having whether it's a solo book, whether it's a multi-author book, there's an automatic feeling that people give you this different level of authority and credibility as an author. And of course, in my mind, doing a solo book especially, it should be your crown jewel, that thing that really brings together what you have to say, what you're all about, and what your core message really is. I think that's another one of those spots where if you don't have that word author in your profile, that you're left out of some circles. A lot of people who are organizing, whether it's conferences, summits, podcasts, they will often look for people who are authors first. And I think part of that is that assumption that if you're an author, you must have something important to say. And if you're not an author, that you're not at that level yet. So again, there's that kind of assumption that fits in there. If you haven't stepped into the publishing world yet, and you're trying to think, okay, should I focus on doing my solo book? Should I step into a multi-author book? And I would say in most cases, people are encouraged. You should do your own book. But one of the ways of looking at it, whether you should do a multi-author book or focus on doing a solo book, really comes down to several of these factors. I think we've all met people who have been working on their book for 10 years, definitely 5 years. I've met someone, it's been 20 years they've been working on their solo book. And so you think about it, obviously it doesn't take 20 years to write a solo book, but many people get caught in that whole process of not knowing what to do next. How do I get through this? And to me, one of the big things that really catches people up, especially working on a solo book, is imposter syndrome, especially with the first book, that feeling of, well, I'm not really an author. Will people even want to read my book? Do they care what I have to say? I find that that's the thing that keeps people stuck for those years and years and years with never finishing their solo book. But obviously, like I said, writing a book should not take you that long. But it does take a significant amount of time to do a solo book where you have to create the whole plan. You've got to do all the content. Then you've got to find the publisher, find the editors, put it all together. There's a lot of different pieces to it. And then, of course, there's the marketing end as well, that now it's taking your time alone. And so there's the time, there's the investment involved. I would say most people still have the idea that the traditional publishing world is the only way to go, and that they need to go find a publisher who is going to adopt them and publish their book, and often have this idea that, yes, they're going to publish me. I'm going to make millions of dollars from the sale of my book. I'll live happily ever after. Whereas I would say for the majority of people, especially with their first book, it's unlikely they will get picked up by a traditional publisher. And if they do get picked up, this advance that you're given really is an advance against the sale of the book. So if the book doesn't sell well, in some cases, you actually have to pay them back. And again, I know we have a lot of publishing people in this group right now that will have other stories or examples that they have run into. But I've heard so many stories of people that end up with cases and cases of their book in their garage that they can't get rid of because of that whole model of, yes, we'll publish you, but you have to buy all these copies of your book. So there's a lot of different things like that. And definitely, check contracts, make sure you really understand what somebody is doing for you, what they're not doing for you, and what you're expected to look after. So even with a lot of the traditional type models of publishing, there is often a cost. And another factor is the volume of content. In my mind, if you're going to do a solo book, you need to have enough good content to really fill a book. And to me, a book has to be at least roughly 200 pages. I've seen so many books get published and they've literally got 50 pages, maybe 70 pages. And to me, that's just a brochure. If the book's not big enough that you can actually write the title on the spine, then I think you've done yourself a disservice in publishing that. That you would have been better off to wait till you have more content, go with a multi-author book, because really you want that book when you're holding it in your hand to really have the size that makes it feel like a real book, but also, like I said, enough valuable, good content that really fills that book and makes people want to read it, makes people want to share it. And so that's another part to think about. So for a lot of people, when they're new in their business, that they might not have enough real good content to do a solo book. And so this sort of plays into that stage in your business. So that's one of the places where doing a multi-author book often comes in well as that first step into the publishing world, is that it's a fraction of that content that's required. It's a fraction of the time that's required, and of course, a fraction of the total investment in most cases. So right now in the publishing world, you really have three options. So there's the traditional publishing system. There is a hybrid publishing system, basically where you're hiring professional people in the publishing world to help you publish your book. And then there's also the self-publishing. And there's definitely a lot more to the self-publishing than people realize when they get into it. So I would definitely recommend that you at least step into a hybrid model if you are going to get into doing your own book. And so one of the things too that I love about books and how it is something that we can use to our advantage is really that the book speaks for you. And one of the things that I love to kind of emphasize too, I find that a lot of people, when they do publish a book, they get so caught up in this idea that I have to sell more copies, I have to sell more copies, I have to sell more copies. And they end up spending all of their time running around trying to sell a copy here, a copy there, go here, sell 5 copies. And to me, that is approaching it the wrong way. It's not about selling the book, it's about the book selling you. And I love kind of looking at it that way and using the book more as a way of saying, this is who I am, this is my content, this is, this speaks for me. And so with a book, it really can be speaking for you in communities where when you're not there. It's clear who you are, what you represent, and what you're presenting to the world. And so, as I mentioned, this is the main thing that I do, and really becoming a best-selling author, amplifying your impact and your influence, really expanding yourself out into international communities. And I just really love how we can really create what I see as a ripple effect of impact with our message and getting it out into the world. And one of the things I love about books really is that they live forever. My mom's got some books on her bookshelf that are over 100 years old, and you can pick up those books and read them, and they're as good as they were 100 years ago. And to me, that is one of the big values, not just about promoting ourselves right now, which is obviously very important, but knowing that our message and our story can go on through history. And so as Coleen and I will chat about too, that yes, so I'd love to have a chat, get to know what your plans are, becoming an author, how I can support you. I've got a lot of connections in the industry. So if a multi-author book isn't the direction you want to go, then I can definitely point you in some other directions. But as I said, multi-author books are my favorite. And in the chat, I've been dropping information to where you can go on my website and download some free PDFs of my previous books, and also check out the list of what else I have coming up. And I always have more books coming up. I've got 3 more that should be getting published in the next few months, and then another 3 that are just getting started. So always lots of opportunities. So Coleen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Cathy. One of the things I thought immediately out the gate when you began talking is that I really enjoy and seem to do better reading through smaller stories. So when you were saying that maybe people are beginning in their big business and they feel like they don't have a story to tell, or their story's not that important, that's my favorite story, is the one where they feel like it's not that important, because I think that really there's a lot in the details of how people's lives build out, how their business is built out. And I love really just diving in to the smaller stories, the short stories, the anthologies, if you will, so that each person is writing a chapter instead of writing a whole book. And I think that it's important to understand that each of the books you write is then centered around a topic, correct? And
Yeah.
everybody contributes to that. And so that gives, for me, at least when I participated in the anthology, gives me the opportunity to look into other people's businesses or their story and learn from them too. It's almost like putting you in a room with a whole bunch of your peers and being able to mastermind because you
Yes.
get to see
Yeah.
all of their very best content brought out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And all of my books, I create themes and titles that are broad enough that really anyone has a story that could fit under there, but narrow enough that really those words hit home to certain people. Like one of the books that we published last fall was the Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities book. And those words just connect with certain people. Another one I'm just finishing up right now is Rooted in Resilience. So just the whole theme around resilience for some people, yes, that's what I need to talk about. And one of my other books is Ripple Effect of Impact. And so for so many people, it is that. What is the impact that I'm creating in the world? So yes, so all of my books have a broad theme, but specific words that really hit home to certain people.
All right. And we have a question in the chat. It says, what do you think of using AI while writing books?
In my books, I encourage people not to use AI to do the writing. I find that a lot of people have found it helpful at the beginning to kind of fine tune, what do I want to write about? How do I narrow this down? And also at the end, when you've done your writing, to kind of ask it, how can I streamline this? Have I been repeating certain ideas? So I see that there's some uses for it, but I definitely do not support using AI to do the writing.
I would agree with you. And I think Lil agreed with you in the comments too. I think that AI is an amazing tool, but if you were to use AI to write your chapter or your book, then you lose your voice.
Yeah.
And I really believe that even if you have your AI trained in, you're still going to lose your voice because it's not you. And it's important to have your idiosyncrasies in there in your writing and how you speak to have that integrated. So, how many words or pages, if we were doing an anthology with you? You said nobody should write a book that's under 200 pages, but if for the people that are interested in doing an anthology with you, or is that what you call it when it's all combined?
Well, I use a lot of different words. Anthology is the word that I prefer, but
Okay.
I realized after a while that a lot of people don't know that word. So I would use it and they're like, what is that? Which surprised me. So now I started using things like multi-author book, collaborative book, compilation book. So all
Okay.
kind of meaning the same thing.
Okay. So, when writing one of these with you, when working with you and doing one of these, how many pages or words, or what's the goal?
Yeah, so in my books, I have roughly 20 people per book. They're each writing up to 2,500 words, which is roughly 4 to 5 pages in a paperback. And then they all get their own bio page, which has their photo and a half page of who they are and what they do and direct contact for them. So it really becomes a great lead magnet in their business as well, because in the chapters that we do, it's a combination of their own personal journey, what they've learned along the way, and then sharing some tips or tools or strategies that they would want the reader to walk away with. So really that core message they want to deliver with their chapter. And then right beside their chapter is that bio page. So when you think about the whole know, like, trust model of, as an entrepreneur, when someone's read your chapter, now they feel connected with you. They feel like they know you. They feel like they understand what you do and why you're doing it. So if they are someone who is that right match for you and your business, they will get that feeling of, wow, I need to talk to her. I need to learn more. And then your contact information is right there. So it really becomes a natural kind of connection.
Okay, and then how many pages does that make your book? If they're only 4 or 5 pages and another page, so you're looking at 120 pages, is that about right?
Well, usually once we've got the intro and everything else in there, they usually end up, let me just see. Right here. We'll see exactly. This one's 250. That was and really to have a nice spine like that where you can easily have the words that I'm holding that upside down, where people can actually read the title, see who the authors are, and people don't think about something like that, like the size of the spine and what the book feels like when you're holding it. Whereas I think that's actually really important.
I would agree. Okay, do we have any questions? Let's open it up for the audience.
Mike's got a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey there, Kathy. I had a question about, you see a lot of people with their how-to books that get to be a little bit dry with the how-to when it comes to people business. Like, this is how I did my business, and how do you make that? It's not always relatable to the person reading it. So when you've got a lot of tips on how to do things, but you don't want it to be just a simple, almost like academic textbook, how do you spice that up?
Yes, yes. Well, and that would be one of those ideas too that fits into what I was saying about sometimes people really don't have enough content to create a good solo book themselves. But definitely I find stories are the best way to really, like you say, kind of add flavor to something like that, giving examples, giving real life stories, giving whether it's their own personal stories or clients that they've served and how that's gone for them, but real life stories I think are the best way to really spice it up, and real examples of where these points can be used.
Thanks.
Carl?
Yeah, how popular are anthology books versus a solo book? Do a lot of people like the anthology?
Like as far as how popular in the reading side or in the writing side?
Well, do people want to read more of a solo book that someone wrote about themselves or whatever the
Yeah,
topic
yeah.
is, or do they want to read snippets of different people?
I would say they're probably pretty close to equal. And especially these days, a lot of people don't have time to really sit down and read a whole book or really focus on it. And one of the things I love about anthologies is you can really sit down and read one chapter. That's the whole story. That's everything right there in that nugget. And and for so many people, really that's as much time as they've got for reading at that moment. And especially when I look at people that commute, people that are, on planes, to pick up a book that's you can just read that one piece and not feel like, oh, now I've got to keep going. I get caught into, oh no, I need to read another chapter. I need to, yeah, I know those people that stay up till 2 a.m. because they're reading the next chapter and they have to
Right.
keep going.
Right. I used to say when I was raising my kids that if I got a good book out, then my home went to hell in a handcart because I don't care what they did, what the kids did, what the house did. I would just sit and read. But the anthologies remind me more of when I was a beginner reader. I remember I loved reading Aesop's Fables. I can't tell you how many times I read that thing, but I would love it because I could pick it up and read one and be done. And I could sneak in between things I was supposed to be doing, helping mom with the house and things like that. I could sneak in and
Yeah.
read a little bit, and then that was the end. I could go think about it while I was doing the rest of my duties or chores around the house. But absolutely, that's a big draw for me, as I love that it's short. You can have little small bites. Lil, you had a question.
Aesop's Fables. I think everything you ever needed to learn in life you can do by reading that and everything from Dr. Seuss, and you're all set. So, do you coach them too? Do you work with them when they
Yeah.
can't write? What do you do when they're struggling to write?
Yeah,
Is
yeah. So
that
everybody,
part of
all
your
of the
practice?
authors, yeah, I make my calendar open to all of my authors. So based on what the level of support they need. So we can jump on Zooms and flesh out those ideas of what do you want to write about? How do you narrow it down? And then we go through the whole process of going through different drafts, clarifying, rewriting. And so, yes. And then we've got the professional editing team. So once we've got the copy really cleaned up, then we take it to the professional editing team that does all of that final proof and the proofreaders and all of the rest of that. So yes, we've got the whole system in place to support people on that journey as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of them have a really hard time writing something.
Yes, and especially getting started. And
Yeah.
I find too, I quite often have people say, 2,500 words. I can't write 2,500 words. And then they get writing, and then suddenly they've got 4,000 words, and they're like, oh, how do I narrow it down? And so I think really helping them at the beginning to recognize that they need to narrow down, like, what is that one message that you want your chapter to say? What is that takeaway that you want the reader to walk away with? and then work out from there with your story. And so yes, it's amazing how people go from thinking that's so much, I can't write that much, to realizing, oh yes, you can.
And so, Cathy, I'm a systems girl. And so when you say that, and there was some chatter in the chat about using AI to create an outline. And I feel like for me, when I look at this with my weird little system eyes, I would say, okay, here's my outline, here's my main point. I need to come up with this many words, and so I'm going to dedicate this many words to this part of the outline, this many words to this part of the outline, this many to this, and then break it down that way. Is that odd, or does that seem to be the norm?
I don't think I've ever had anyone break it down as far as this many words for this and this many words for that, but more creating that skeleton and then fleshing it out from there. Because certain parts of it are going to need more context, more explanation, more of the story, whereas other parts can be kind of just clarified with a couple of sentences. Yeah, I've never had anyone approach it quite like that, but I guess if that's what works for you.
This is why I'm a baby author and not a big girl author yet. So, alrighty, there is something when somebody gets published. Tell us about the end process. There's something you do that I really like.
Yes, yes. Well, I think the part that you're hinting towards is the last year, one of the things I started doing is taking my authors to New York City and having billboards in Times Square. And for many of us, that is a big thrill and a bucket list thing. We did 2 trips last year. We did a trip in March. We're going back in October. And so all of my authors have the opportunity to either be on a group billboard, so it's got the book in the middle and like 4 of them with their photos and names around the book, or they can have their own solo billboard where we would obviously include the book, but then they could also choose if they have a tagline or what wording or other image they might want on there as well. So that has definitely been fun. And kind of looking at this idea of bucket list as well, one of the things that I love about, especially with new people, getting them into the publishing world, I think I've heard that like 92% of people have it on their bucket list to become a published author, but only about 5% of people ever do. And so I would say for most people, they've put it way back on their bucket list, way back on the back burner, like, well, that would be cool, but that will never happen. So when it does happen, what I love is there's actually quite often this shift in the feeling of what's possible. We thought, well, that's not possible, but now I just did that. So to me, that's one of the things I love, especially with these multi-author books where you've got people coming in that never thought they would ever be an author. They would never get into the publishing world at any level. And so to have them go through that shift of, wow, what else is possible for me? And I would say the billboards in Times Square for a lot of people is another one of those things that we've all seen the movies. We've all thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool? But that'll never happen to me. And then when you're standing there on Broadway with your billboard up above you and all your friends around cheering you on, it's another one of those things that's just that feeling of, wow, I never thought that would happen. Now what's possible?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like you're right. It can be very empowering for sure. So talk to me about ghostwriting. Do you suggest people do that? Is that a tool that you use? Is it an avenue they should explore?
I would say if people are really set on doing a solo book and they don't feel comfortable, as a really solid writer, that a ghostwriter could probably be a good solution. I don't do ghostwriting myself, but I have people in my circle that I can refer people to. Actually, there was one person that I did some ghostwriting for, and that was just because English was not his first language, and to really write it out in English would have been hard for him. And so we did that one together. But in most cases, I've found that once people get started, again, getting started is always the hardest part. But once they actually get on that roll and really flesh out what they want to say, what they want to focus on, what their key point is, it is amazing. People really can put together 2,500 words. And I would say for most of us who are entrepreneurs, we probably do that much writing every week with other things that we're doing. And really looking at these chapters as well as not something else that I'm doing, but part of the content you're already creating. So that content of what you're already doing in your business really should intertwine with the message that you're putting out in your chapter as well. So really it's included as part of all the content that you're already working on.
Very good, very good. And so tell me, when you're talking about Times Square, people going and doing it with 4 people on there or solo, what does the price tag look like on something like that?
Yeah, with my authors, what I offer to them is that they can be on the group billboard for $250, and then if they want a solo billboard, it's $500.
I see. And so if somebody wants to work with you, Cathy, do they come to you and say, "Hey, I want to write a book about midlife divorce," and then you create a group that satisfies their desire? Or do they come to you and say, "I just want to be an author," and you're like, "Okay, we have this, or this"?
In most cases, it is that I have these options. Which option is the best one for you? There are groups, so communities that I've worked in where we make the book as part of that community. So it is branded around the community and it's filled with members from that community. So in that case, we've got that theme and those people are fitting into that. In some cases as well, when I've got some of my books published and I'm looking for new ideas, if someone comes to me and they say, "Hey, I want to do a book on this," if it's obviously something that's a broad enough theme that a lot of people could fit into and it fits into my kind of community theme, then yes, we look at creating a book based and running it out of that person's idea as well.
Cathy, are you ready for my questions?
All righty.
Hot seat question. What's one thing everyone in your industry is doing that you think is complete BS, and why are they still doing it?
One of the things that I see in the publishing industry that I would put in that category is that I think there's been a very good job of keeping it as an elitist thing and keeping people, the general public, feeling like, well, I can't fit into that. I'm not an author. I'm not good enough. And so I think to me, that's the part that really has to change, that we have to make it clear to people that there are support systems that are, like we're saying, that there's writing coaches, there's editors, there's ghostwriters, so if you've got a story that needs to be shared, if you've got a business that needs to have a book, don't feel that you're not you're not Stephen King, so I can't write a book. Well, Stephen King had to start somewhere. It's all about starting where you're at, getting the resources that you need and building out from there and making it happen. So to me, that's the thing that I would really focus on, that's getting away from this elitist feeling that only this group of people is allowed to get published.
Okay. Question number 2. What's a mistake you personally made that cost you serious money or time, but you kept making it anyways because you were either too proud or too scared to admit that it wasn't working?
The one that comes to mind is this difference of multi-author book versus solo book and where I can support people. And when I first started doing this, I thought, oh yeah, I can help people with their solo books too. The multi-author book is my focus, is where my heart is. But sure, if someone comes to me and they want help with the solo book, I'll do that. And then I had a few people that did come to me and wanted me to do that. And I recognized that it's a whole different game. Doing one chapter versus doing a solo book is a completely different project. And the time and focus required for that requires a specialized person. And so I have now stepped into my circle. My focus is the multi-author book. When people come to me and they want to do a solo book, I have people that I send them to.
Very good. Let's get to question number 3. If you could give only one piece of advice to someone in your industry, but would go completely against the grain, what would it be and why is it worth the backlash?
Yes. And I think when I look at that as far as in my industry, I will focus that question on the writers, not the publishing end. And going back to that idea that don't get stuck in that imposter syndrome, that you are not an author or you've never done this before, so you can't do this, that recognize that your story is powerful. I think I say I focus a lot of my work on women. And so I like to say that as women, especially, but I know men as well. As humans, our stories are so powerful. We learn from each other. Somebody might feel like, well, what I've gone through in my life is just what I've gone through. But there's somebody else going through that same thing or a similar thing. And if they can hear your story, if they can hear how you got through it, how you approached it, what was the support that you got to get you through this? Whether it's building a business, whether it's going through a divorce, whether it's going through becoming a widow, all these different big things in life, the more we hear each other's stories and see examples of people that have come through these big things, I think it really supports all of us to get through our own big stuff. So really my message there is to everyone who knows they have a story, that knows they have a message. Don't be shy. Get it out there. Find the right people. But it's important that you do get it in writing.
I think that's such a good and valuable point to make, because I know that when I first brought my business online, one of the things I kept telling myself, was like, oh, I had 20, I think I had 25 people on my email list, and I was trying to grow my email list, and then I got up to 40, and I was like, oh, but it's still not very many. And I had to remind myself, if this was my shop downtown and I had 40 people come in, would I feel like, oh, it's just 40 people? No, these are people who want to know. And so when writing a book, I feel like sharing our story, even if it only helps one person, isn't it so worth it, right? Isn't it so worth it? The worth of a soul, just to be able to help that one person, I think holds so much value.
And I always look at it from a ripple effect point of view as well, that it's not just that one person. That might be that one person reading it, but if you've actually helped to shift and improve their life, you're helping their family, you're helping their community, you're helping everyone they have contact in with. And so really, I look at it as a ripple effect. That one person is not just one person. And as an author, you have no idea how wide that ripple will go. And that's one of the things that I love about the whole publishing world, is that we are creating an impact far beyond what we will ever know.
I love that. I love that. And I actually am a real book lover, in that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a minimum of 8 big, huge bookcases full of books that we read. I love books, and I love sharing books with my grandkids and writing little things in them. And I just love everything about books. I appreciate you being here today. Do you have anything you'd like to leave with us? Tell us a little bit maybe about your freebie.
Yeah, no, definitely. Anyone that is looking to get into the publishing world, or just knows that they have a story that needs to get out there in the world, definitely connect with me. I've always got more books coming up. One of the books that we're focused on right now is called Intentional Perspective, Finding Joy When Life Gets Messy. And, with that one, really the big picture is spreading joy, helping people to find ways of creating joy in their life. And I think especially at this time in history, that's a really important mission to be on.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. So this has been Monday Morning Business Foreplay. Thank you so much, Cathy. If today's conversation has helped you to see something differently, make one clearer decision, or take a meaningful step forward, then this hour did exactly what it was designed to do, because clarity creates momentum, and momentum beats motivation every time. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your business, and your perspective with us. If you found value in this conversation, please share it, tag someone who needs to hear it, or invite them to join us next week.